what are some of the positives or advantages that you got out of single speeding that you carry today in your full suspension riding?
Well, I think keeping your eyes up is a huge one. And as you're approaching something, you have to keep your momentum on a single speed. So as you're approaching something, you have less time to decide how you're going to attack it. Downhill, similar, but anything that's flat and technical or uphill and technical, you're going, and you have to make these decisions, in the moment and under duress. You're pedaling, so it's different muscles, it's different technique. It's really cool training. I know when I'm training on trainer road, and there's times where I stand up, or the trainer will give you instructions to stand up and sprint or something like that. I'm closing my eyes and I'm thinking about single speeding. This is gonna come in handy on the single speed. So you get that strength. You start single speeding, you get really strong. And then you talked about riding the same trail on a single speed versus your trail bike. So as far as having a second bike in your stable, if you make it a single speed, it really turns your local trail into something very different. Hills that weren't a problem before are so challenging. I take my geared hardtail to Belmont and I zoom up these hills that I only get like 30% of the time on my single speed. And so, oh my gosh, what a huge difference. So, it can make your riding, much more interesting on some of your local trails. So I think it's great. Learning to use the big gear in tech, that's probably where your question was pointing, is that we learned how to do tech on single speeds, which is a big gear. You always run it. You're not going to run a small gear in a single speed because you wouldn't get through your ride. It would take too long. You'd be spinning too much. So you run a decent gear, and then learning how to use momentum and then continue to turn the pedals and push through tech. And I think we both run kind of a bigger gear. We're more comfortable with big gears when we are through tech now on our full suspension bikes.
Just to piggyback on that, I think one of the things, if you are into slow speed tech, one of the things that will really help your slow speed tech game is the half crank, and on a single speed, you learn to half crank really quickly because your power band, and I'm sorry, if you don't know what a half crank is, it's when you don't get a full crank around on your pedals. And often if you are paying attention to how you're riding, there's a power band, right? So there's a stroke. First of all, you have a dominant foot and you have a not so dominant foot, but you could tell when that power stroke comes in. It's usually right after you get across the top, but before you get to the bottom. There's that like 3/4 of a spot where all your power comes from. And so when you're able to half crank, that allows you to stay in that power band. And man, do you use that in single speed all the time. So that's one thing that will help you out if you get a single speed. But the other part of it is when you're doing slow speed tech, that usually means you're going through some heavy jank. And if you are someone right now that sits through jank, what will end up happening is, well, first of all, you'll be in the wrong body position, but you also bang your pedals into all the things. I mean, you're just going to be constantly banging your pedals. So when you're running a bigger gear, you're getting less revolutions just naturally, right? I mean, just naturally, you're going to have less revolutions. That's going to really help you when you're getting through jank, So if you're someone that likes to spin in like a 1 or 2 or even a 3, and you're noticing that you're striking your pedal on the rocks and all this stuff, try going up a couple gears and using a half crank. It'll really make a huge difference in your slow speed tech game. I mean, those are probably the things that stick out to me the most.
Those are excellent points. When you're in that easy gear, you're spinning, your pedals are spinning so much more. There's so much more of a chance that they're going to hit a rock and knock you offline. And then there's just something that feels good about having that tension. We talked about it with the skinnies last week. You have the tension, and that makes you feel in control when you're up on top of the skinny, no matter where you are. And it's something I totally want to practice. But going through tech, when you have that tension, not from squeezing the brake, but from that being in a little bit of a harder gear, and so you have that tension on the pedals, and it's just, you're not going fast enough to have the gyroscopic effect. Same thing with the skinny, but you have that tension, and so like this is again where the strength comes in, your core strength, and you got your legs engaged and you got your arms engaged, and so you're using all that strength to keep the bike stable and where it is. and then to start moving forward with that. So you might go into with a single speed, you might go into your tech or your jank, as they like to say, with momentum, which is a good idea, but you lose it pretty quick. It's a hardtail without a lot of suspension. So you gotta keep turning those pedals, and you gotta have faith. And we come back to this. You have to trust your skills, right? One pedal stroke at a time. Keep your eyes up. Keep moving forward. It's like in life. Keep moving forward. You got it. You have to trust it. And then so you start like flowing through on the hardtail with one gear. You start flowing through this tech because you got the tension and you're staying low and the bike's moving under you. And there's a specialness about that. There's the reason that people don't get rid of their single speeds, besides the fact that they're probably not worth that much. But we keep them because they're fun to take out. There's lessons in there. It's a different type of fitness. It's a shorter ride, right? If you only have an hour and a half or an hour, you can go out and thrash yourself pretty good on a single speed. But there's a different type of riding. There's like it's almost more primal, more just old school mountain bike. You, the bike, and the rocks.